Now, Jen Phillips will be our speaker, and she's a Winthrop, Maine Historical Society board member. And she's from away, officially. However, she has deep ties to the town of Winthrop. She has ancestral roots since 1802. She was born and raised in the Plains?
Des Plaines.
Des Plaines.
Yeah.
Illinois, right near O'Hare Airport. And she spent 17 years in England. I'm sorry, I knew I was going to mess this up.
In Elgin.
Elgin.
The watches.
In Illinois, before moving to Winthrop in 2019. With her husband, Kurt, and her son, Ricky, who are both here tonight. And her mom, Annie Cobb Bird, who grew up in Winthrop. Ann Bird was the oldest child, and Jennifer is the oldest grandchild of Richard Chick Cobb, which many of you know, I know, and Mary, or knew when he was alive, and Marion Hyatt Cobb from the Cobb Farm on Old Lewiston Road. Jennifer has always admired the Winthrop Grange building on Old Lewiston Road, and it is number 209. While growing up in Illinois, her only exposure was either hearing about it from the Grange meetings and conventions on Little House on the Prairie, or by driving by the Grange when she came to visit here. And being told that, oh, that's for the farmers. Because of Jen's piqued interest in learning more prior to COVID, she and Kurt attended a haunted house held by the Grange. Among another time, her mother, Ricky, and Jen attended a Saturday morning breakfast and talked about joining the Grange. Her mother had shared some stories that she remembered about her grandmother, Ruth Gaggy.
Yeah.
Gaggy Cobb, who was involved in the Grange. Is it Ann or Annie? Did you know?
It's Ann.
Ann, sorry. Also spoke to her cousin Bob Cobb and his wife, Shane.
Yep, Shane.
Shane, who had their wedding reception at the Grange in 2022. After the Grange reopened, Jen and her family officially joined. It is Jen's goal, as well as many other Grange members, to see that the Grange building receives the necessary repairs it needs and to watch the membership grow. We have some Grange members here this evening, I know. And to grow again, to make an impact on the residents of Winthrop and the nearby communities. In her presentation, Jen will be discussing some of the history of the Grange, the activities in Maine. Additionally, she will mostly discuss information about Winthrop Grange 209, its history, activities from both past and present, plus share stories from those who remember days and nights spent at the Grange, Winthrop Grange. I apologize for having to read. Linda Pratt, our president, planned on doing this presentation and is unable to, for health reasons tonight, to be here, and asked me to set in. So I hadn't practiced it for very long. So I apologize for having to read, but I think you will enjoy the presentation by Jennifer very much. And so we'll go right to it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hopefully somebody shows up on Zoom here and there as well. She gave a lot of my first paragraph, so I'll go ahead and leave that all out.
So sorry.
No,
I was handed that.
That's okay. But basically, like she said, I'm from away. I always wondered about the Grange Hall. I never knew. I was always just told it was for the farmers. But my family was farmers, so I didn't understand why they weren't there. But they were there at one point, especially my great grandmother. And it's really cool because I brought some of these booklets that people can look into. And in doing so, I'm still going through some of them, but in careful examination, I've seen not only my great grandmother, Ruth Gagi, but I've also seen her father-in-law and other people that were brothers and sisters throughout the lineage and then various different names that are just very common in Winthrop and have been in Winthrop for years, and hordes of families that are all interconnected. So feel free to come up and kind of take a look at what I've put on display when I'm done. If you'd like me to change the pages or look for something specific, I can help you with that. So, according to sources, the official name of the Grange is the National Grange of the Order of Patrons of Husbandry. So that is the true long name of the Grange. Most people refer to it as the Grange now. At one point, there was leadership trying to just say that they were the patrons of husbandry. Then people eventually didn't know what that meant. So then they kind of reverted back and called themselves the National Grange, and so on. I will refer to it as the Grange when I go forward. But it is a social organization in the United States that encourages families to promote social and economic needs of farmers and the political well-being of the community and advance agricultural methods was the original intention. The Grange was founded in 1867 in Washington, D.C. And like I said, they wanted to promote agricultural needs and such. The Grange arrived in the state of Maine in 1873. And in 1874, the Main Street Grange was located in Lewiston, but they later moved to their building in Augusta that's right next door to the Kennebec Savings Bank right off the Rotary. At the end of 1874, there were 64 Granges throughout the state and approximately 2,000 members. By 1876, that number had grown to 228 Granges with approximately 12,000 members. Now, this is just only in the state of Maine. Our Grange is referred to as number 209 because it was the 209th Grange formed in the state of Maine. Winthrop Grange number 209 was organized on February 25th, 1876. The very first master was Joseph R. Nelson, who served as the master from 1876 through 1879, and then again in 1882. I'm still trying to figure out where they actually met because the building that we know of as the Grange building was not built, or I have not been able to find a reference to it other than in staff polls, and that was in 1895. So he was the master the master is the person that's appointed as the leadership of the organization at each location, and they are voted on by the members. So people going, what's the master? That's what the master is. There was a lot of secrecy back in the day in various different member organizations like the Grange and the Masons and things like that. Everything that I'm going to say today might have been secretive at one point, but it's all available on the internet and there's no secrets anymore. So, so just know that in case you hear me say something and you're like, oh, I can't believe she said that. The largest growth in the Maine Grange system happened under the Maine State Master by the name of Obadiah Gardner. He was master from 1897 to 1907, and during that time frame, the Grange halls grew from 243 to 419. That's a lot of Granges in the state of Maine. Throughout the entire state. In doing so, membership at that time increased from 21,515 people to 55,212 people. Isn't that amazing? By 1907, Maine's per capita Grange membership was larger than any other state in the United States. According to information obtained on the website through legislation, the Grange supported prohibition. They also supported rural free mail delivery. The Grange advocated for strong local schools and helped in funding for the University of Maine. Additionally, it was instrumental in working with the state government agencies to promote reform in agricultural practices and to protect the quality of fertilizer that was available to farmers. That was a big deal. After all, my grandfather said the secret's in the stuff to the Harvard study that tested the land way back when we used to have our corn. So our secret is now gone because we don't have the cows anymore. The Grange was also progressive in the fact that they supported direct primary recall and referendum voting rights for women and believed in curbing monopolies within the state. I could go on and on about a whole lot more that the Grange influenced, but we'd be here all night. And I'm sorry if I'm not really making eye contact. This is very weird for me because I'm always giving presentations standing, but I'm having a gout flare and my joints are really inflamed, and that's why I'm sitting down today. So normally I can make eye contact and look at my notes, but I apologize if you keep looking at the top of my head. So all members of the Grange are required to do degree work in their membership. It is defined by the Grange that the degrees are short enactments like plays that allow members of the Grange to pass on to new candidates the values of the organization and the lessons that can be learned. In the Grange's case, the natural world and work of agriculture, while emphasizing the core teachings of the Grange and the fact that local Granges built resiliency, sustainability throughout their hometowns. Do you feel that that is an accurate description, Lee, since you are a 75-year member of the Grange? Good enough? Okay. And if I'm saying something wrong, you can stop and correct me, because this woman last night received a certificate because she is a 75-year member. There are 7 degrees within the Grange organization. The first through the 4th degrees are degrees for the subordinate Granges, which is what the Winthrop Grange is. The 5th degree is a county-based degree, which is called the Pomona Grange. And then the 6th degree is the state Grange. So you have to have the 6th degree to stay for that section of the meeting when you go to the state Grange convention. And then there's the 7th degree, which is the national Grange degree. Same concept. In order to be welcomed into that meeting, you have to have done your degree work for the 7th Grange. Some community Granges have replaced the degree ceremonies with welcoming ceremonies, and others continue to practice the first 4 degrees at their Grange location. That's kind of what we do at the Winthrop Grange currently.
Excuse me, what is a degree?
It is that enactment that's basically some different rituals that they have, and you go through a process and explain different things about what each thing is. So like, for example, the first degree, I have my notes here, but I can't remember what they each focus on. But you go through the different degrees. Like for men, in the first 4 degrees, it's the laborer, the cultivator, the harvester, and the husbandman. And then for the women, we're the maid, the shepherdess, the gleaner, and the matron. And so it's like a reenactment, or like I had said, a little play. And it basically works out so that you understand where that ritual came from and you learn about it in that process. I know I did my first 3 or 4 degrees at the Manchester Grange, but I don't remember other than marching around and grabbing this and grabbing that and setting this down. And so, but I did do it. But that was a couple of years ago and a lot has happened in between then and now. But it doesn't mean I disrespect the rituals, because to me, history is important. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be a member of the board and I wouldn't be talking about something like this. So, but the degrees are based on, oh, here it goes. So the degrees are based on symbols and seasons. So things like the plow, the spade, the pruning knife, and then the different seasons of the year. Is that a good description?
That's one of the things, yeah, in the station.
Yep, and there's various different stations that you stop at along the way. So,
The most important is the secretary and treasurer, where you learn about the money and what it goes for.
right, exactly. The money is always important because without the money, you can't exist. But there are learning opportunities for members, and they help pass along the Grange's core teachings. But now to talk about the Winthrop Grange itself. There are many people in our community that have roots in our Grange Hall. If you look through the Winthrop History Grange, like I said, there are so many families that were actively involved that somebody could that's had their family here for a long time could probably pick up one of these books and be like, oh, that's my aunt, or that's my parents, or that's my grandparents, and find them listed. For example, our own History Center curator, Mary Richards, she grew up in the Grange. Her family was heavily involved in all directions of the Grange. Not only was her father a past master, but so was her grandfather, which would be your parents, right? Or no?
Well, she had 2.
Right.
2 grandfathers.
Yes, her 2 grandfathers were both in the Grange. So, and were past masters. So that's kind of cool. Obviously, you know that Lee is because I've been talking to her and referring to her. Our current master is Kathy Ward, and she couldn't be here tonight. But she has been the master since 2022. She took over from our former master, Arthur Wells, who passed away earlier this year. And he served from 2014 through 2022. Kathy is the 49th master of the Winthrop Grange and the 4th woman to hold this role. The first woman in this role was Gloria Kenny, and she took office in the 70s. However, the master that had the most years of service was William P. Maxim. Did you
Every other time.
And he was the master for a total of 13 years. So from 1959 to 1961, 63 to 64, 80, he took a big break, 87 to 89, then 98 to 2000, 2006 to 2012, and then 2012 or 2010, 2012 and 2000 until 2013. So those were the years that he served, and I heard that he was the egg guy at the breakfast. Is that right? He made the eggs.
We took over from somebody else.
Okay. I do not know the highest number of Winthrop Grange membership, but in some of the record books that I've looked at, the numbers were well over 200 people. In fact, in one booklet in 1923, there were 212 members that were listed. Of those 212, 14 were new. During that quarter, because they would divide it up into quarters instead of a yearly membership. But during that quarter, there were 10 women that joined and 4 men. At another meeting in January of 1930, there were 106 people in attendance at a meeting because they needed to do their 3rd and 4th degrees. And it was a special meeting just for degree work. Some of them would have the number in attendance at the meetings and some of them did not. Some of it just listed the officers that were present. Another thing that was very commonplace is you would have 2 meetings in the month and one was generally more of a business meeting. And then the next meeting had more social aspects to it. There would be like a lecturer that had arranged someone to come speak about something or a special event. Is that how it was when you were a member? Because things changed throughout time.
They were pretty much the same when I was.
Okay. But yeah, so that was really interesting. There was a Christmas program dinner on December 18th in 1933. So that's definitely during the Depression. And there were 56 turkey dinner suppers that were sold that time for 75 cents. And they netted $33.27, which was a lot of money for back then. So that wasn't bad for during the Depression. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, last night we conducted a dinner honoring Lee Gilman, who's been a member for 75 years. And we also honored deceased member Arthur Wells, that past master that Kathy took over from, who passed away earlier this year. And we presented his certificate to his son, Sean Wells, who joined us for the dinner.
And his was how many years?
His was for 50 years. And then, but regardless, 50 or 75 years, both are an amazing accomplishment of dedication to an organization that is completely voluntary and membership driven. There were additional members honored that couldn't be in couldn't be at the dinner. Heather Brigham, she lives out of state now. Even Eva Davenport. It's my understanding that she came from the Monmouth Grange, but they are 50-year members. Jacqueline Prescott was a 65-year member. Juanita Baker was a 70-year member. And for 75 years besides Lee, there was Arthur Elvin and then Harolyn Prescott, and she passed away earlier this year as well. So I still think that's pretty amazing. So prior to last night, I spoke with Lee about some of her memories and activities in the Grange, and it was very fascinating. Lee and her family, like I said, were actively involved throughout her time and served many roles over the ages. Lee said that she was 13 when she first joined the Grange, which was not the official age you were allowed to join at, but because the National Grange was meeting in Portland, they wanted to make sure she got all her degree work done and she could convene in the 7th degree at the national meeting down in Portland. So that was pretty cool. And that's a proud thing. Prior to that, she would be at the Grange Hall with her family while they were having meetings upstairs, but she would be downstairs with those who weren't old enough to join yet. Therefore, Lee has, like I said, has all 7 degrees. Lee was very active with her family, participating in a variety of activities. She advised that she did not just attend her own Grange, but also other Granges that they would travel to. It was really neat because in some of the record books, you'd see Winthrop 60, Reedfield 12, Monmouth 40, like different Granges from around that would come to support each other's events, and how many people were there for that. So basically, as I said to her, if you're a Grange member, your fellow members and their families were like your extended family. And she said, yes, that's exactly how it was. The master led the meeting and made decisions for the greater good of the organization with input from the attendees, which we still do today. There were several 4-H clubs that used to meet at the Winthrop Grange, and the Scouts actually used to meet at the Winthrop Grange, which I didn't know until I was reading through some of the documentation. Lee's husband, Stephen, was also a master at the Grange from 1964 to 66, again in 1996 to 98, and then in 2003 through 2004. Lee talked about the many meals made for the Grange for a variety of reasons. Some were fundraisers for the Grange. Some were just good for the community, such as the Hunters Breakfast or the snowmobile clubs that would ride in for breakfast. She said that there was dancing, singing, and card games such as 63, which I had never heard of, that took place after the business meetings were over. There were various reasons to celebrate throughout the year at their agricultural fair, Christmas events, minstrel shows that were all common productions, as well as tableaus for the various degrees. And in talking with Mary Richards, I asked her, what's a tableau? Because to me, it's a table. And so she was like, well, nope, that's not what it is. It was something similar to a still life painting. Instead of the fruit, it was the people, and we were dressed in togas acting out a scene. And I said, okay, then. So we don't do that anymore. Thankfully, because I don't want to wear a toga. But I'm proud of her for actually doing that. So while some things that were very commonplace, they don't really take place anymore, but it's still all centered in good fun. While the organizations of the Grange are obviously agricultural, most Grange halls, from my explanations that you've heard, served as major social meeting places at the time they were built. There was no TV, there was no internet streaming, cell phones, and even radio. Yes, Ricky, put away your computer. Radios were invented in 1923, but it wasn't until the 1940s that radios were in 90% of households that owned a radio of some kind or another. TVs were invented shortly thereafter in 1927, but it took much longer for it to make an impact on the household because TVs did not reach households at the 90% mark until the mid-60s. As technology entered our homes, the more social clubs and community organizations started to diminish and disappear from the landscape. And when that happens, then of course the membership diminishes as well. And that was no different at the Winthrop Grange. As time went on, membership dwindled at all area Grange halls, and they've been closing up regularly throughout the decades throughout the state. Some Granges are saved, such as the Monmouth Grange. They were the first one to close down next to us. They closed in April of 1994 and consolidated into the Winthrop Grange. But back in, I believe it was 2004, after being vacant for quite a while, the town of Monmouth and the theater at Monmouth came together and crafted enough guidance to be able to let the theater at Monmouth take over the building with some guidelines that the town set upon them, and they spent $400,000 to rehabilitate that building. Now we're trying to rehabilitate our building, but we will not spend anywhere near that kind of money because we can't even fathom that. I guess they never took care of their building or something. But additionally, the Reedfield Grange, they closed in December of 2008, and they merged with the Winthrop Grange at that time as well. It's my understanding that it's changed hands several times and was last turned into an independent day school, but I don't think it's open anymore for that. I don't know if there's anything else there, but that was what I could find in my research, other than driving over there to take a look.
The Reedfield Senior Citizens bought it at one time in Bethel.
Yeah, and then they sold it to like 2 or 3 years ago to a day school that was thought it was gonna be perfect for them, but now you can't find any record of them other than in newspaper articles that they're going to. So maybe it didn't work out for them. Projects for the Winthrop Grange is that we currently work on is there's a free sewing class that our master Kathy Ward gives at the Grange on Thursday nights from April until the end of October. So we're almost tied up for the rest of the season on that project. We actively participate and now operate a program called Winthrop Cares. It was a project that Mary Richards brought to us and asked the Grange to take over. It's a great little community service project where we buy, the sewing class makes backpacks, and so some of our members have sewn, such as Kathy and Sue Jacobs have sewed backpacks for the kindergartners. And every year every kindergartner gets a bag. So we get a number from the school district and they fill it with all kinds of healthy items that promote physical, mental fitness, and mental health aspects. So that's one of the things that Winthrop Cares does. They also have a booklet of quotes and guidance and information for the graduating seniors at the high school that they can use to look back at and find different organizations that might be of need as they go away into their adulthood, that they could easily gather at that through that booklet. There also is a scholarship fund that was started by your sister, correct? At the Grange, and now I don't know what it started out as, but now it gives to 3 different high schools. It's open to the 3 different high schools, and it's for somebody who wants to pursue any type of agricultural based career. So whether it be an engineer that focuses on sustainability, or it's someone who wants to be a farmer, or somebody who wants to be a vet, it's all animal science or agriculture based. Last year, we were able to give out 2 scholarships, one to Winthrop High School and one to Monmouth Academy, an individual at Monmouth Academy. The previous year, we gave away 1 to Monmouth Academy, so it's based on who applies. And then in 2023, we were a vendor at the Seaster Centennial event that was downtown. And it led us to being a major sponsor to assist in the operations and kickoff of the yearly planned Winthrop Heritage Day. We also have the Scarecrow Festival that you see the scarecrows on the street. So that's one of the things that we've done as well. And somewhere, here it is. So these are the little ballots that you can get. And it has all the placements of the different scarecrows that are out there, with the exception of Sully's. They ended up putting theirs on their building after I had given them their location. So if you want that one to be first, you'll still have to go look at it in a different spot. But this is, you can vote for first, second, or third place. And the Historical Society is a drop-off place, but in red, it lists all the different locations for your ballot drop-offs. So take some time, get a chance to look at them. They got a little very rained on the other day, so be kind to some of the individuals that their scarecrow might not have stood up as much, but it was a fun little thing. Another thing that we're doing is Dot had secured 40 pumpkins from Stevenson's, right?
Right.
And so on Sunday, the 27th, we're going to be doing pumpkin carving at the Grange itself before we shut it down for the winter.
It's a free event too.
Yep,
Everything's included.
Yep. Just bring yourself, bring a kid at heart, or bring a kid and have some pumpkin fun. The current state of the Grange Hall on Old Lewiston Road is that we have a lot of repairs that are needed for the building. Last year, we secured the foundation of the building itself. There was a beam that ran underneath the Grange building from the front to the back of the hall, one straight beam. And it was tied in both the front and back in the foundation. But the middle bracing was on shaky ground and the other two were completely missing. So that has all been shored up and fixed, and some other foundation things have been fixed by Gary Mann, thankfully. So our building is more stabilized than it was before. We still have more work to do, but we're moving in a positive direction in ways that other people can't see, but we are getting there slowly but surely. We also have the building that's connected on the side. That was our storage room, but at one point, those were the outhouses. And we learned yesterday from Lee that before it was closed in, it was where the horses would get tied up when people would come to the meetings. So never knew that part. However, we were trying to save that portion of the building and rebuild it, but it's going to cost more money than pulling it off and closing up the hole and just getting a separate storage space. It's pulling away from the building, and there's floor issues and foundation issues that have gotten much worse. So that's where that is. But we are also working to replace the electricity in the building. The building does have its original knob and tube. At some point, there was some upgrades that had been done where they spliced in Romex into the knob and tube, which is great if the insulation stayed on the Romex. But different mice and animals have chewed off that insulation, and so wires are very close to each other. So at any point, something could spark and cause a major catastrophe. Fingers crossed that won't happen, but we've applied for a loan through the Maine State Grange to try to help get that taken care of sooner rather than later. And in doing so, we're hoping that at least minimally, we know we have to do more fundraising, but the bottle redemption, that corral that we have there, we usually get about $100 a month, wouldn't you say?
Off and on, yeah.
Yeah,
Depends on the.
it depends on the season. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less.
Averages.
Yeah, so we're hoping that at least the bottle money that comes in for our bottles and cans can help us make the payment for the loan for the windows. Or not the windows, the electricity. We do have some windows that are broken that need to be fixed. But yeah, so those are all of the various different things. We are going to be doing a work day on October 26th, Saturday, the day before the pumpkin event, because we do have a septic field and it's been inspected and it's in great shape. Hey. But there's so many trees and roots and things like that that are so close to it, encroaching on it, that we need to clean up all around it. So like I said, if you know of anyone or you are willing to get out there yourself and help us, I'm making blueberry stuffed French toast, because obviously when you think Grange, you also think food, whether it was a bean supper or breakfast or something else. So I will bribe with something decadent like that for us to work. But yeah, so it's a major endeavor, and we're looking forward to what will come for the future with the Grange. Let's see here, sorry. If you ever did want to support us with your bottles, like I said, you could put them at the Grange Hall itself. We have a bottle corral, or you can just easily go to the Redemption Center if that's easier for you, and you just need to tell them at the Redemption Center that it's for the Grange, and they'll put it on the Grange account in the booklet. So should anyone be more interested about the Grange, please let me know. Do not hesitate to reach out to any of the members. There's Lee, there's Bob, there's Dot, my husband, Kurt, and Ricky. We're all members. We meet at 6 p.m. On the first and third Wednesdays of the month, sorry about that, April through October, at the physical Grange Hall. In November through March, we meet at the Legion Hall. And I was just informed, because of when we need to leave, our meetings will be starting there at 5:30. We do try to have a dinner. Since it will be starting at 5:30, it will end up being a working dinner. You don't have to partake if you don't want to. It's a little potluck. Membership is $24 per individual or $50 for a family year. But let me know. In ending, in my opinion, today's Grange is still trying to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up, because the generations have changed, society has changed, the way we do things have changed, but we still want to exist. But if you look at the baseline of everything that's been done here in the long run and the things that we're currently doing, at the core of everything and at the core values of our membership is family, service, community involvement, and depending on the Grange location, agriculture. We still are involved in agriculture, just not to the extreme that we once were. So thank you for coming tonight. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
How many members are there now of the Winthrop Grange?
There are 23, and I had a paragraph about that, and I was looking for it because it must have somehow got deleted out. Because I know that I was talking about a few things, and I can't find it. So,
Very good enough.
thanks.
I gotta-
Yeah, but I said that we were a small but mighty group. Yes.
Yeah, last month, the Sun Journal did an article on the Granges.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I thought it was a very interesting article. At least for somebody, a neophyte who wasn't familiar with Granges,
Right.
other than they existed, what they did, how they started,
Hmm.
and so forth, and back about a month ago.
Okay, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Linda.
I have two questions.
Okay.
Is the 4-H club associated with the Grange?
No, they are not. They were a social group that used to meet at the Grange Hall. I honestly do not know where they meet. For example, also the local Masons group, because their Masonic temple used to be where the library was, and it's no longer there. They would love to rent from our Grange, but we aren't a 12-month Grange. We're hoping that someday we'll be there. So that way we can rent it out for those types of events and organizations as well.
I just thought because they were children, I think, basically with the animals, raising them, and
Right.
they're not associated. Second question. I've never seen so many fairs.
Mhm.
You have this state in all the different areas, and they're all related to
Right.
agriculture. So is that part of the Grange?
There is an exhibition hall, and Dot and Kathy work really hard, and they usually put up displays from our Grange for the competitions at the Monmouth Grange, Skowhegan Fair, and Windsor, right? Yeah, so that does get us some prize money to help us pay our bills.
That's really good prize money.
Yeah. Any other questions? Did I do a good job explaining it overall? Thank you. Yay. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Appreciate it. That was